I'll be back in a minute. My speaker's in the other room.
Hi, Christine.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. All right, let me get my PowerPoint up here. Remind myself what tab it's on. 90 tabs open at the end of the day here.
All right.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for hopping on. Hopefully we'll learn something tonight. And I also want to have plenty of opportunity for other folks to share products they're using, what they've tried, what worked, what hasn't worked. I always say I know a good bit, but I don't know everything, and I've used what's worked for me, and that doesn't work for everyone. So especially when it comes to saddles, if you want to start like trying to remember what kind of saddle you ride in to share with people, I tend to get a little frustrated sometimes on like certain pages because people will ask for recommendations and everyone's like, get a saddle fit. And like, yes, bike fittings are beneficial, but we can like also tell people what we try and what we use if they want to start there. So if everyone wants to share, I plan on taking some notes too, so we can make a post on the Facebook page, just like, hey, who was on the call last night, these are the saddles they use, so on and so forth. Because yes, it may not be one stop for everyone, but at least for someone that's a newer cyclist can or struggling with saddles can just have somewhere to start, because it can be very overwhelming. So that's my goals for tonight. Sometimes it's always hard when we share the screen if I can see the chat or not. So if I'm missing something, someone just interrupt me. All right. So starting with pedals, if you're on my last chat, I know we like touched on this side briefly. We're going to dive into each type of pedal. So each different pedal has a purpose, from our platform pedal to our road pedal to our mountain bike pedal. Flat pedals we tend to ride with any style of shoe. The flat and platform pedal are the same thing, so those words are interchangeable. This platform pedal that's shown here is more of a mountain bike style because you can see those little pins in it. So those have the potential to damage like our regular old sneakers, but they do make flat pedaled cycling shoes that have a bit of that stiffer sole. So that can be beneficial, if you choose that platform pedal, just to still get a cycling specific shoe that does exist. Our clipless pedals, so confusing, clipless are pedals that we clip into, but this terminology comes from the historic abandonment of toe clips. So the toe clips and the straps over the shoes, once they got rid of that, they started calling it clipless. Very confusing if you're getting into cycling because you're clipping into something even though it's called clipless. So that's just a little history of it. So diving into pedals a bit more, for the stock pedals and the flat or platform pedals. So stock pedals is usually what we refer to with what the bike comes with. So usually it's a pretty inexpensive plastic style pedal. If that's all you want and that works for you, rock on. A lot of people tend to upgrade from there. So a hybrid bike will come with some stock flat pedals. Usually upper end road gravel mountain bikes won't come with pedals because we buy our own clipless pedals that we like and the style we like and put them on those bikes. And then like I mentioned in the previous slide, we can upgrade flat pedals to something with those pins in there. That helps just keep our foot a little more stable on the pedal. And then the shoes for the flat pedals. Making sure in my notes here I said everything I wanted to. Any questions so far? All right. I do think it is a misunderstanding that not all bikes come with pedals. We saw that a lot in the bike shop. They're like, wait, what? And usually if you're buying a higher end bike, throw in a flat pedals if you insist. But like I said, usually you're buying something a little nicer than that stock pedal that the bike comes with. Okay, mountain bike pedals tend to be this 2-bolt system. We tend to call them SPD pedals. Something I learned when I was putting this presentation together was SPD stands for Shimano Pedaling Dynamics. Never knew that. So SPD was invented specifically for this off-road riding, started with mountain biking, and now we've got the wonderful world of gravel. With these pedals, usually the shoe is going to have the cleat recessed in it, and it's like a 2-bolt cleat that goes in that, which is why it's the 2-bolt system. So it looks a little smaller than our road pedal. The shoes have the recessed cleat, which means we're walking on the shoe. So in mountain biking or gravel, if you've ever done some of those things, there's going to be a time where you have to walk. And if you have road shoes, you know walking in those isn't the best thing. So these off-road shoes tend to give us a little more grip. You can see a variety of different styles here. Obviously, this isn't all of them, but I would say these are common things we see. So this one in the middle is your traditional SPD. You can clip in on both sides. This top one here is still an SPD, but you have more of a platform. And this is what I've transitioned to on my mountain bike and my gravel bike, just to give your foot more of a space on that pedal. Can help with power transfer. But that's what I've switched to on my mountain bike and gravel bike. And then I'm still rocking this middle of the road SPD, not middle of the road, the middle pitcher SPD on my cyclocross bike. And then here is a Crank Brothers looking pedal. That's going to use a little bit of a different cleat. You'll need to get something in the Crank Brothers family, but that is also something, a common brand out there. And then Time is another common brand out there. So any questions on this? Anything to add with what pedals you are using? We good so far? Okay. All right, road pedals. So road pedals tend to have a 3-bolt system, so it looks like a triangle. And we tend to walk on our cleat, right? So the cleat is sitting on the bottom of the shoe. That cleat then goes to the pavement, and we look like waddling ducks walking around. Again, common brands in this are Look. The SPD SL is the road version of the Shimano pedal, which you can see in the top right here. Time is another one. So again, similar but different in the road system. I would say most commonly you see this more triangle style pedal. Look, SPD SL, Speed Play, Time, we talked about that. And then there's float in the cleats. So this can get a little confusing, and this is when we can benefit from a bike fitter for sure. More so important if you've had any kind of knee injuries or you struggle with knee pain, I would say this becomes more important. So when you go by cleats, you're going to see there's different colors, and different brands use different colored things. But I would say Shimano is like the most common brand when it comes to this stuff. So this chart is talking about the Shimano SPD SL cleats. So different degrees of float. So what that does is it gives our knee just ever so slightly some movement, which tends to help with knee pain rather than having our knee locked in and not moving. So the different colors means the different degrees of float when we're putting this on. Look has different degrees of float in their pedals. So if you're looking at a Look system, their gray cleats are 4.5 degrees. Their red cleats have 9 degrees. Again, this really gets complicated, but very important if you have knee pain or you're suffering from knee pain. And again, this is one of those times where a bike fitter can truly help you, and it would be beneficial. You can also, which I have, just the way I pedal, I have one leg that does something a little different than the other. So I also have like a shim underneath my cleat just to help even things out, get the leg going the right way, have the height evened out and all that stuff. So something I would have never known unless I went to a fitter. So, questions about float? I would say if you don't know what you need, probably middle of the road is best. But again, if you struggle with knee things, I think it's best to get more of a professional opinion.
And Hunter, doesn't the knee thing come into play with women and our hips and that whole angle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I tore my meniscus years ago having the wrong pedal on prior to a long distance race. It was
Yeah.
too rigid, didn't
Yeah.
give.
Yeah.
And they blamed the tear on I
Right.
had black pedal. So it ties into that whole angle of the hips and to
Yeah.
the knee.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
is
We're built just
important.
a little different. Yeah.
Right.
Which is
The
like the whole
hips.
reason women are more prone to like ACL injuries and all that stuff,
Mm,
right? Like
mm.
just because of the way we're built and the way we walk, the way we hold ourselves, right? Like all of that plays into it. Again, I would never know my one leg does whatever differently. I don't even know, right? I just trust that the bike fitter's like, no, this works, and I've never had knee pain since it fit. So, but yeah, like there's all sorts of things they can do to try to like help this and correct it. But yeah, we shouldn't have knee pain when we're riding bikes. So if
No.
that's happening, get it addressed, please. But yeah. Yeah, this gets a little complicated for sure. And like I said, Shimano's the most common system, but there are other brands out there. Okay, and this is just a nice little chart I got from REI. They have some great resources on how to pick stuff out. So if you really want this screenshot, I'm more than happy to send it to you. But it's looking at the different pedals and what is involved in each one. So we talked about the 3-hole and the 2-hole systems. Obviously, the road bike, we talked about having that smooth shoe, and it's going to be a very stiff shoe to help with that power transfer. And you're walking on that cleat, which is the cleat style here. In mountain bike, we want a stiffer shoe, right? We're still putting some output there, recessed into the sole. And again, recreational riders, nothing wrong with riding in your sneakers if that's what you choose. But again, if you want to, try to get some fitness, you're upgrading to some pedals with those pins in it. You might want to look into investing in just a flat pedal shoe with a little bit of a stiffer sole. Okay, so what I use, I already explained, I showed you the picture. So I use the SPD with the bigger platform for my mountain bike and my gravel bike. This should say my cyclocross bike, that's my bad. But yeah, I'd use a double-sided pedal for the smaller one for my cyclocross bike. All right, questions about pedals, comments about what people use, what brands they use.
A quick thought, Hunter, on pedals. I know with traveling, if you have to pack your bike up, we have found it very difficult undoing the pedals.
Mhm.
I don't know if the bike shop tightens it up. What do you do? I know maybe your dad helps you, or
Yeah.
you have a special tool, but we're challenged by it every time we have to take our bikes
Yeah.
apart.
That's a great question. I would say bike shop mechanics have this like thing about them where everything has to be like so tight, right? And we want our bolts tight, right? So like that I can understand. I want my handlebars bouncing around. But when it comes to pedals, that's such a good question. When it comes to pedals, they're reverse threaded. And with that means every time we're pedaling forward, we can't unthread the pedal. So how I handle that is once whomever cranks the pedals on and my dad has to crank them off, I then put them on myself because then I can undo it myself because I don't like take every ounce of my manpower to tighten the pedal because it doesn't have to be. So that's what I would say. I just do my own because then it's not so tight and it's not so hard. There are pedal wrench tools. Those confuse the crap out of me. They help you get more leverage, but it's something about it that I just can't comprehend. So I just use an Allen wrench. That's what makes sense in my mind. And I don't have an issue that way. And I have like not the little like wrenches you would take to put in your CamelBak, but I have the true set of Allen wrenches where you can put the angle in and you can get the leverage, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just put my own stuff on because I can manage to get it off. But yeah, if I got it back from the bike shop, my dad, or like I would have to make OA help me now that I live here and explain to him what direction to turn the thing, which is confusing. That's something we could probably practice when we do some in-person thing again, because it's simple once you understand it, but it's like hard for
It
the
is.
mind to comprehend.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there are pedal wrench tools, and like in theory that like helps give you more leverage. I just can't, like, it, something about it doesn't work in my mind.
It's counterintuitive the
Mhm.
way you unscrew it and screw it in.
Mhm.
But I like that tip of like, if the bike shop has put them on, you make sure you can loosen them up,
Yeah.
maybe before you leave the bike shop.
Right. Because then like once I put it on myself, like I never have a problem, right? Like, because
Right,
I
right.
have power pedals that I move from my road bike to my trainer bike. And so I do that very frequently and I never have an issue. But if someone else were to do it, right? I always joked with John and Ben at Trek. I'm like, he bendered the pedals on, you like can't take the suckers off. Like,
I hear you.
but yeah, they don't need to be, yes, they need to be tight and threaded all the way through, but they don't need to be like cinched in there because again, when you're
Right.
pedaling forward the way it's threaded, you're never gonna unthread it. So
I will share that with my husband.
yeah. Any other pedal questions? Yes, Kim.
Do you use any lubrication or powder, silicone powder, or anything like that with your pedals when you're putting them on?
Nope.
Clean and dry.
I would say, I guess like they kind of come, maybe like when they go get built at like the bike shop or whatever, they already kind of put some stuff on it. I would say, I guess most bikes I've had have been built by a bike shop, so they've probably put some kind of something on the pedal already, because when you take it off, your hands can get a little dirty. So if yours are completely dry, you probably do want some grease on there. There's certain grease that they use for bolts of the bike. I can work on getting you a brand.
Just curious if it's dry, if it's wet, you know what I mean? What is the preferred?
Yeah. I don't think like every time you take the pedals on and off, you have to like lube them per se, but I would say usually the first time that like the bike shop probably does it, there is some kind of grease lube, something on there. I mean, if it's bone dry, I don't know if it's a problem. I wouldn't say I've ever re-greased my pedals. Maybe that's shame on me, but no one's yelled at me yet. So
It just seems it's an area for stuff to collect if it's wet, for mud and sand and whatnot.
Yeah. So I think
there's
with
extra.
that, like once they're threaded in, they should be fine. Now, like the actual pedal itself, you can just hose that, right? That shouldn't be a problem. That's not as much of a concern as like I was mentioning the last talk, like the bearings in that bottom bracket in that area are like the things we have to be concerned about, the mud and the gunk and the stuff. The pedals shouldn't be a problem and you can blast those with the hose. So yeah, it's the thing that they're attached to that we have to be worried about. So, all right, any other pedal questions? All right, so saddles. This is probably why a lot of you are here. So a bike comes with a stock saddle. Majority of the time, the stock saddle doesn't work for someone. If the stock saddle works for you, I'm going to say you are a very lucky person and be grateful for that. Saddles, we need to be fit to, and your local bike shop should be able to do this to fit your sit bones to know what width saddle to get. So this is different than a more in detailed bike fit. This is like, how wide are my sit bones? What saddle do I need to get? So a lot of saddles I've seen most commonly will come in like 3 different widths. That can vary a bit from brand to brand, what the size is, but it's, think of like a small, medium, large. A big misconception of how small or large of a human we are is how large our sit bones or narrow our sit bones are, and that's completely false. You can be a tiny little human with wide sit bones, and you can be a larger human with narrower sit bones. So it has nothing to do with your weight or height or size. You need to get your sit bones measured, right? So don't think like, oh, I'm a smaller person, I need the smallest, or I'm a medium person, I need the medium. Like, that's not how it works. So Get that out of our heads. Get your sit bones measured. Because the saddle's not going to be comfy if our sit bones aren't in the spot where the saddle's designed for our sit bones to be. So again, most bike shops can help with that. And of course, if you decide to invest in a fuller bike fitting, they can also help with that. So that's the width of it. We have cutouts versus no cutouts. So a cutout's going to help alleviate some of that pressure in our more sensitive areas. And we'll get into that a little bit more. No cutout. Usually there's indents in certain areas to relieve some pressure, but it's not obviously as open as a completely cut out. And then saddles are going to depend on what kind of riding we do. So, you know, the big comfy cruiser saddle is not going to be big and comfy on my road bike, right? We're sitting two very different ways, not going to be comfortable. So that's our basic overview. So getting into saddle fitting, get your sit bones measured. You can do this. Oh, she got it. Sorry, Donna. Okay. So you can do this at a bike shop, which is probably easiest, but they also have these like home fit kits where you can sit on some kind of like special cardboard and indents in it, and then you can measure the indents. That's fine, but I would also encourage you to go to your local bike shop and become friends with your local bike shop. So I think that's a bit easier than doing the whole at-home measurement thing, in my personal opinion. Other things to be worried about with saddle fitting is our saddle height and our saddle reach and our saddle drop. I've got an image that I will show you to explain that a bit more. But for our saddle height, we want our knees slightly bent at the bottom of the pedal stroke. If we're sitting on the saddle, we want our tiptoes usually on the ground. That's like the quick and easy way to measure saddle height. The reach is from the tip of the saddle to the stem. So how far is our saddle from our handlebars? That matters because if we feel like we're supermaning it, we're going to have a hurt back, or if we're super crunched, right, we're not going to be efficient with the power, and we could also have a hurt back. So that's the reach. And then the drop is from like the saddle to the handlebars, that like vertical drop. Usually most people are like pretty even in those. You know, your really advanced road cyclists are going to have the saddle up higher than their handlebars, right? A negative drop. You'll hear like guys joke about like slamming the stem. That's what they mean. It's like a very aggressive position. Most of us are pretty even. Again, this is another thing they go into detail about if you're doing a bike fit, but if you're being set up just at the bike shop, they're going to set that up pretty evenly. And this can change with your fitting depending on your goals. Like my mountain bike, for example, I got that refit because last year I was doing, 12-hour, 10-hour mountain bike rides. So I wanted something a little more comfortable for that effort. If I was only racing a short 1-hour mountain bike, then maybe I would go back to the fitter and being like, hey, I've got shorter races this year. I want it to be more aggressive. So it's something that like can be changed if you want it to be changed. But again, the regular setup is good with that, unless I would say this gets more complicated with triathlon bikes. How aggressive, not aggressive, what's comfortable because you're in that aero position. So triathlon bikes, I'd probably encourage everyone to get a bike fit because those things are complicated beasts. But our regular bikes can be a little more simple to set up to get us started.
Can I add something to this?
Absolutely.
Okay, so saddle fitting. Just did that Nat Chog thing on Sunday.
Yeah.
And okay, so that's with a gravel bike. And I got that at a different shop. I got my gravel bike at a different shop. And I happened to have my bike measurements from my road bike that I'd given to, the person at the bike shop.
Yeah.
At a different bike shop. I don't think they're necessarily the same because I'm just making a commentary for FYI informational kind of stuff, because I'll tell you, the last 2 times I rode the gravel bike, and Laura was with me as well, on both of these things. The trap muscles, the neck muscles, it's so sore. I don't think they're the same. I think it's a different reach. I think I'm feeling now that I really need to go get a fitting
Yeah.
with my gravel bike. There's a difference between that and my road bike.
Yeah.
I was fit for my road bike at one shop,
Mhm.
and I bought my gravel bike at a different shop, and that person took my the printed out piece of paper with the measurements
Mhm.
and kind of fit me to that, I guess,
Yeah.
and my seat height is so high.
Uh-huh.
Plus, another thing too is the saddle itself doesn't have that cutout piece. It's just the one it comes with, I guess, the
Yeah.
manufacturer piece. So
Yeah.
I think it's super, super important that, I mean, I'm experiencing it because right now feel it in my arms, my shoulders, I feel
Mhm.
uncomfortable. So yeah, that's a conclusion I've come to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to go get fitted for
Yeah.
properly. It's not, it's like, it's different. The one a printout I had from my road bike is certainly different than my gravel bike that I have.
Mhm.
I think it's different measurements, it's different reach, it's different
Yeah.
seat to the bar. It makes a huge difference when you're
Yeah.
out there for more than a couple of hours. It's,
Absolutely.
ooh. So
Yeah.
anyway, just wanted to mention it. It's important.
Absolutely.
And it's worth it. Yeah.
Mhm. Appreciate
And-
that. Yeah, it's worth it to be comfortable. And like that's a great comment too, Christine, because the industry is changing with gravel bikes, and we're seeing like you can buy a bike specifically for gravel, and that's gonna probably have, starting out, a different geometry than a true road bike. So our gravel bikes, this is a generalization, but they tend to be a little longer, and because they're designed in theory to be like more comfortable to go longer distances, right?
Yep.
Where road bikes tend to be a little more aggressive, a little more racing. And again, these are big generalizations, but
Mhm.
to your point is like, yeah, the geometry of that bike's probably a little bit different.
Yep.
We can give the person the benefit of the doubt and say he did the best we could, but it's clearly not the same as your road bike, right?
It's
Like there
not.
needs to be a further evaluation. And then with that, even the saddle, right? I always say you'll never care about millimeters more than when you're getting your bike.
Yep.
Because maybe that saddle has ever so slightly different padding or something, putting you a little higher, a little lower, and all of a sudden all these things hurt.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Motrin and Hot Spa here for me for the past
Yeah.
couple days, because
Yeah.
definitely feel it. And even a week ago when we were doing the a different gravel biking thing just on the airline trail for
Yep.
25 miles. That was last week, and 2 days ago it was 35 miles on, off road and road and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Ooh, sure
Yeah.
feel that. And I'm sure it's because I'm not properly fitted on that bike, because I
Yeah.
don't have those issues when I'm on my road bike, which I
Right.
am fit for
Mhm.
properly, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah,
to add
thanks for
something
sharing.
about fit, if you don't mind, on a road bike, because I've been doing this over 30 years. And I think I was fit on my triathlon bike 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm finding as I get older, my lower back, I'm not as flexible as I used to be. So it might be worth, every 5 years, let's just say, to get refit.
Mhm.
You might, you could get fit in a super aggressive position, but then, like Christine's saying, you get up the next day and your back, your shoulders, your traps or whatever
Yeah.
are killing you.
Yep.
So, unfortunately with age, we're not as flexible, and you will see a lot of senior athletes that are, let's say with the aero bars, they're not flat, they're up higher.
Mhm.
So just something
Yeah.
to think about with fit.
Yeah.
One fit at one age, 20 years later may
Yeah.
not be the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that is like a good common thing, like every few years just to get refitted in general. Like even newer cyclists, like your body's going to change the more and more you cycle, right? It's going to like get used to that feeling, and it's going to do different stuff whether you realize it or not, right? And then like I was saying, like I'm like doing it like race dependent, right? Okay, I'm doing these all day events. I want to be more comfortable rather than more aggressive, right? And so keeping things like that in mind. So yeah, fittings are an investment, but like everyone is saying, they're totally worth it, because it's like
Mhm.
being comfortable is worth it, right? Like biking doesn't have to be painful. It shouldn't be painful.
Yep.
Yeah, these are all good reminders. All right, so this
Do
is
you, quick
go ahead.
question, do you have anyone you recommend for
yes,
fittings?
yes. So there's all sorts of people. A lot of folks in here go to Steve at Bicycles East. A lot of folks here go to Chris at Body Over Bike. Chris is a hard human to get a hold of, but if you can get into him, it's worth every penny. I can share. Bicycles East is easy to get a hold of. Google it, give him a call. If you want to go to Chris, I can give you his number and use my name and tell him you're part of Women on Wheels, and you got a better likelihood of getting him back to you quicker.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome, Laura. Let me make a note. I'll reach out to you. Who
Awesome,
else has
thanks.
everyone used?
I used Henry, rest in peace,
Yeah,
at
me
Trek
too.
several years
know.
ago. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, I
Here's
know. He
Steve.
did all my first ones too.
Yeah.
Same, Jane?
Steve.
Steve at
I
Bicycles
did a lot
East?
of work on my bikes over the years.
Yeah.
But Steve did my last bike fitting. Very
Yep.
scientific. It's like
At
an engineer.
Bicycle East, Jane?
Bicycle East in Glastonbury. Yeah.
Glastonbury? Okay.
Mhm.
And I think
Husband
Lisa-
wife team. They're really good. Really
Yeah,
Okay.
him and Deb are great.
Mhm.
And I think Lisa Barrett just got a new bike set up by him too and is very happy with it.
Mhm.
But they're good humans. They know about our group. They're involved in Lake T. So,
Okay, cool.
Yep.
My new bike is from them as well, and I love the fitting that I got there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
awesome.
Yeah, Laura, I'll send you those names and I can post them on the page too.
Thank
Um,
you.
There's another woman, she's like at the other end of the state though. I'm forgetting her name, and she's like a PT. She like knows a lot of cool stuff, but I think for most of us, she's kind of a haul. But I can try to find the name of her too. I haven't used her, but some folks I know that are pretty serious road racers have used her and have really enjoyed her like education beyond cycling. But like I said, I think that's a bit of a haul where most of us are closer to this kind of central Connecticut area. Okay, so this is just a quick picture on how we want a slight bend in the knee at the bottom of the pedal stroke. Tiptoes should be touching the ground. Again, if this is just a quick and easy way to get us out on the road, this is kind of what we're looking for as a starting point. This is what I was explaining with the height and the drop and the reach. So the height is going to be from your saddle to this bottom bracket area. The reach from the saddle to the stem area, and then the drop is, you know, how high the saddle is compared to the lower high the handlebars are. So that's the drop, and that's usually what's pretty even for most of us, unless we've got some stuff going on and we need to really tweak that area. In a bike fit, a big thing that they'll change too is the stem. So getting longer, shorter stems, different angled stems. I would say that's like one of the most common things that you'll have to purchase in a bike fit is a different stem. Okay, how to try saddles. So most local bike shops are going to have a phenomenal return policy, usually about a month. Take the product, ride in it, do what you need to do, because quite frankly, you don't know if any of this stuff works for you until you go on a ride in it. And like Christine was saying, an hour ride versus a 3-hour ride are very different things in our bodies. Websites also have very good return policies. I went through this a year or two ago. All sorts of brands I bought, all sorts of brands I returned, didn't have an issue. You know, as long as you're within that window, you'll get your refund. But check that if you're buying a saddle online, just check to make sure there is a return policy if it doesn't work. Saddles can be expensive, so you don't want to be out a couple $100 because you didn't check the return policy. Some bike fitters have a lot of saddles that they'll lend you to try during a fit. Try it for a little longer term trial, bring it back to them, see if it worked or not. That's not everyone, but sometimes there is that option. Or talk to your friends, right? Maybe they have some saddles laying around that didn't work for them, but may work for you. Doesn't hurt to look. I think Kathy Kohler always says all her saddles are bought in like the $10 grab bag box of saddles. And I'm like, good for you, Kathy. How nice, right? And so, again, I don't think it doesn't matter if you know, this saddle is $500 or $60. If it works for you, it works for you, right? So if you can find a saddle from a friend or find a saddle in one of those blow up box deals, like it doesn't mean it's better than or less than. Like, and I said, if you can ride in the stock saddle, go with it. You know, one saddle's not better than the other as long as you're comfortable in it. Okay, so getting into a bit about saddles. So stock saddles and hybrid saddles. So stock saddles are going to be with what our bike comes with. But usually we're making some kind of change with those. Hybrid saddles, I have two examples here. This top one is obviously more of our like cruiser, you know, think the beach cruiser saddle. You're really upright, it's really comfy, riding around, not for a long time. The saddle down here is more for like our fitness recreational type rider. So it's not as wide, but still pretty wide and cushy. You're still more of an upright position, but maybe not as upright as that beach cruiser person. Some materials you'll see in these saddles are gel versus fluid. I would say fluid is more of a new thing. The benefit of that is the stuff in the saddle moves with you. In theory, it's a little more comfortable. Well, gel kind of like stays put. But gel is obviously more comfortable than like the traditional foam or whatever. But I feel like very few new saddles are going to come with like no gel or no fluid. There's going to be something in there. So yeah, stock saddles, hybrid saddles, fitness type saddles. Questions about those? All right, road saddles. This is where things start to get a little more complicated. So road saddles tend to be longer and narrower because that helps reduce chafing when in a more aggressive road position. Width of the saddle, I'm going to keep saying it, is important for your sit bones. These saddles tend to have less padding in certain areas, just because of the way we sit, the pressure points, the things like that. You can see in some of these saddles, like this bottom left one, there's some more padding in certain areas, less than others. This position is even a little more aggressive, right? So we're a little lower down to the handlebars. The cutout versus cutout. So again, that tends to be where we're putting our pressure on like the pubic bone area. And that's just going to be dependent on you, what you need. So like some of like this saddle in the middle here has a cutout pretty much all the way through. It's only connected at the nose. This saddle up here just has a small cutout in the middle. This saddle has no cutout, but it has the indentation here. And then this is the special like mimic technology that Specialized does for women. So this is, if you were to feel it, and if you're ever riding with me, just ask me to feel my saddles. This is on everything but my tri-bike. It's a little squishier than the rest of the saddle. So even though there's not a complete cutout, there's still some relief there. So again, what's right for you? You have to try it. I started pretty much in this Aeolus type saddle, wasn't cutting it. I moved to the Specialized Mimic saddle, and I have it now on every bike but my triathlon bike because that needs a different saddle. So this is working for me right now. Is it the best thing I've ever sat on? I don't know, but it's getting me through 100-mile rides right now, so I'm gonna take it. But yeah, it can be a challenge for sure. But yeah, who rides and what for a road saddle, if you know?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I looked upon the Terry Butterfly cutout saddle years ago, and that's
Okay.
all I've used since then.
Okay.
I got it out of the Terry catalog, and I think somebody had recommended it, and it fits, so I'm not changing it.
Yeah, perfect.
We're talking types of saddles.
Yeah, what do you have
Yeah.
on like your road or?
Yeah. Actually when Amanda was still here,
Mhm.
she had recommended Anya.
Yep,
Um,
AJNA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
road saddle, and that has served me very well. even up to, the half Ironman distance and such,
Yeah.
getting up to toward the Lime or whatever. So even
Yeah.
getting up over like 60 miles on the
Yep.
bike, I was okay. I was okay.
Mhm.
So starts to get sore after a little while, but
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a certain,
it was tolerable.
yeah.
With
You didn't
Cami
get any
cream.
saddle sores, right?
No, and
Yeah.
Cami cream too, of course. That always helps. So
For sure.
yeah.
All right. Anyone else have a road bike and know what they're on for a road saddle?
Yeah, and the Anya has that that kind of that split, like in that picture
Yeah.
on the lower right there. It's sort of like that. So,
Yeah.
totally made for us. So
And honestly, if someone wants to try that, I might have one or two. So message me if you're curious. I just have to go dig through all my stuff, but I think I have one. So
Yep. Huge difference.
yeah. Cool.
I was just looking at on the Terry catalog the other day for saddles, and there's like 13 different ones. I was like, oh my God, I don't even know.
It's
Yeah.
overwhelming.
It is. It is. And people get so opinionated about my stuff. So it's very hard. All right, what do we got in the chat here? All right, love to try any saddles. Cool. I will reach out. All right. Okay, tri saddles. These things are super scary to look at if you've never seen a triathlon saddle.
Ooh.
You're like, what in God's name? But for the position we ride in, they're very comfortable. So in a triathlon bike, we get off of our sit bones and we're like completely laying on our lady parts, right? So this is why we've got these scary looking noses. So triathlon saddles tend to have shorter noses, much more cushion in certain areas, wider in certain areas for support. And then they often have a split nose for pressure. So you can see this one here is a completely split nose. This one is one that Trek has, and at a time they had one that had like an adjustable nose. So you could, this part in the middle, you can make narrower or wider with a tool. So triathlon saddles, super important. I would say a lot of times this is where you can like go numb in certain areas if you don't have the right saddle, or like you can see this saddle's like a little, like it's skinny up here, then it gets a little wider in the back, and that's just going to help support, I guess, like your hips and things like that. But then you need to make sure like certain parts of your legs aren't rubbing up against the saddle. So it's a whole thing with the position, and really important because you want to spend most of your time in that aero position. These saddles usually aren't as comfortable if you have to get up out of the aero bars to climb, because they're like not designated for you to be like sitting on your sit bones all of this time. So they're definitely built for you to be more in that triathlon, laying on the aero bars position. And like I said, sitting upright, it's usually for a short amount of time, you're climbing a hill, you're back in aero. It shouldn't be totally uncomfortable, but again, those saddles are not designed for you to be sitting up out of your aero bars per se. Okay, questions about triathlon saddles. And if you have a tri bike, what do you ride in? Anyone?
Perry Butterfly.
You use the same one?
I do. I
Okay.
do. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm gonna have to look it up and see what it looks like next. I'm curious.
Yeah. I'm sure you can find it online easily.
Yeah. I'm in an ISM saddle, which is this brand. I think it's like the 1.1. I have it on a slide here. I would say this ISM brand is like very popular in triathlon. Jane's using the Terry. Again, there's a zillion brands out there. I rode in the stock Trek saddle for a while. And then I don't know, at some point everything just stopped working for me and I overhauled everything. I don't know. But okay, mountain bike saddles. So these are going to be pretty similar to road saddles. Again, this depends on how aggressive you're riding. I know people use their mountain bikes for more recreational bikes. People use their mountain bikes to use single track. So some of this comes down to like, what are you doing with your mountain bike? These can have more padding. Again, you can be more upright in a mountain bike position. You can be more aggressive. Depends on your goals. But with mountain biking, we tend to move around a lot more due to like riding over rocks and roots. Whereas the road, there's some movement, but it's not as much as mountain biking. You know, mountain biking, we're up out of the saddle a lot. We're off the back of the saddle a lot. So there's more movement going on overall. Personally, I use the same saddle for road and mountain bike. That's what I found works for me. But again, depending on your position, you may not need something as aggressive as a road saddle, or you might want a little more padding. But I would say there can be a lot of crossover there. Does anyone use something specific for their mountain bike? All right. Okay. What goes into the saddle price? So like I said, some of these saddles can get quite expensive. The one thing that goes into it is the material of the rails. So the rails are the thing that sit on the seat posts that get, you know, tightened up so the saddle doesn't move. So there can be from heaviest to lightest, steel, alloy, titanium, and carbon. Obviously, anything with carbon on the back of it's going to be a little more expensive. The saddle's a little lighter. I would say saddles is one of those things. Just find one that's comfortable. Again, it doesn't matter how expensive, it doesn't matter how light, more padding, less padding, find something that works for you. The material it is made out of, so you know, like that Specialized Mimic saddle has like different types of padding and things like that, you know, that could play into the price. They're also doing like 3D printing saddles now, which tend to be very pricey. Those tend to be like the most expensive saddles within a brand. You can afford it and it works, perfect. Let me know what you're riding in. But that's what goes into saddle price, because I think a lot of times people are like, what the heck? And in the Specialized, the Power Mimic is what I ride in. They have like the comp level and then the, I don't know if it's like elite level, right? And what that is, it's the different rails material, right? So is it some kind of alloy or is it a carbon? So the saddle itself is the same. It's just the rails that are going to be different. I'm not sure anyone on this call is like super worried about carbon rails. So if it's the same saddle, I would just buy the cheaper one. But if you're like dead set on carbon rails, rock on.
Yeah, I don't know what I have, but I do remember it does say elite on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe
And
that's part.
sometimes the saddle shape is just like ever so slightly different from like, you know, the comp to the elite or whatever. Like it just
Mhm.
depends on the brand.
Yep.
But usually again, more expensive, it's going to have some kind of carbon or 3D printing. It should be
Yeah.
clear on what it is.
Okay.
I've just looked up the Terry Butterfly. It comes, you know, in a variety of ways, $89 to $189.
Yeah.
And I've owned a few, and I'm going to say they last at least 10 years of,
Mhm.
you know, pretty
Yeah.
high mileage riding. So
Yeah.
it's worth it for the comfort for me. I should
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
All right. So what I use, like I said, the Specialized Power Mimic is on everything. For my triathlon bike, I'm in the ISM 1.1. These are all the other saddles I've used in the past on various bikes. I've used the, I don't know how you say it, Ajna, whatever. That one that Christine has, I've used that. I've used the Aeolus. I've used the Bontrager tri-saddle, which is the Hilo. So I've tried various things and they've all worked for me for an extended period of time. But right now, these are the things I'm on. Okay. What do we have for questions? Anything? I think that was my last slide. Yeah. All right. Any questions? Any other things you guys use that you want to share?
I was curious if there's a recommended product to clean the saddle and how often, because I've heard of bacteria buildup that can cause rashes. I have yet to experience that, but just wondering if anybody knows any standards for cleaning of the
Yeah.
saddle,
That's a great
not
question.
breaking it down.
Yeah. No, I don't use anything specific. I would say I wash all my outside bikes, I would say pretty frequently. So I guess they get hosed off. On my trainer bike, I'm a brat. I have a bike that just stays on the trainer. So that like I don't ever wash, but I have just like alcohol wipes or whatever, right? To wipe the sweat off my area when I'm done. So then I run that over the handlebars in the saddle.
Okay.
Hasn't ruined it yet. I don't know if that's like healthy for it or not, but I figured like when you're on the trainer, you get so sweaty. So I just kind of
Yeah.
dust everything off, but I don't use anything specific, I would say, besides water.
Okay.
Anyone else? Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, I had heard it mentioned once, friend of ours has gone cross country several times. He said it was key to
Interesting.
get that saddle cleaned every night because of bacteria buildup. And I was like, ooh, geez, I don't wash my saddle that often.
Yeah.
How about Armor All? You know, like what you clean your car with, like Armor All wipes. I don't know about, you know, antibacterial or whatever, but just
Yeah.
for cleaning. But I mean, I'm sure there's got to be a lot of antibacterial sort of, even a household spray, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate to use something like that, you know, like a Lysol kind of thing.
Yeah. That's pretty much like the whatever brand of wipes I have, right? Like it's
Yeah,
that.
you're right.
Um,
Just to clean it off.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, good old soap and water. Well, I don't know if it's leather, that could, be an issue.
Yeah, I think
but
that's what I
it's
was
fine.
gonna say. Like the
Yeah, like
Brooks-
Armor All
Yeah.
leather.
The
Sorry.
Brooks saddles are leather, and you see that a lot more, I feel like,
Mhm.
in gravel. I see a lot of Brooks
Mhm.
saddles. And so obviously the leather saddles need like certain leather care, but I think
Yes. Yeah.
whatever the
Yeah.
material our saddles are made out of, you know, it's
Pleather.
yeah,
Yes, and
whatever nonsense that is. Kim, do you have a question? No, we're just seeing your face again. All right, who else has a question?
I have one, at Cardinal. I don't use the pedals, that you would clip in. And I know my brother and sister-in-law are always like, oh, come on, and I'll be doing rides with them, and they say, I mean, it really will help going uphill or, it helps you with the power. But I'm so frightened to lock my foot in. It's,
Yeah.
I know my sister saying to like put it on my indoor bike if I can change the pedal in this way, I won't be afraid to fall,
Yeah,
So-
yeah. No, it is a learning curve for sure. And I think we can all probably tell you our story of learning and slowly falling at a stop sign, right? Like I think we've all been there. And it's one of those things you can't sugarcoat. Like you can practice on the trainer all you want, and probably the first time you roll up somewhere, you're gonna be like, ah, and like
Right.
fall, right?
Right.
So, I mean, a few things, right? I think the suggestion of like practicing on the indoor trainer is great because it is a different movement to kick your heel out to get out of something. Like that is
Right,
very
right.
not intuitive as a human for us to do. So that's a great place to start to learn. Once I like kind of got that under me, my dad took me to a very quiet, flat road in town. And every mailbox, he made me unclip and get out and get back in, pedal to the next mailbox and unclip and get out and get back in and pedal to the next mailbox. So like,
So it's practice and
yeah.
give
Yeah,
it a
so if you can
try.
find a safe spot, right? And like, I wish I
Right.
could tell you that you're never gonna fall, but I don't. Has anyone else fell learning to clip in?
Yes.
Yeah, like it's.
I went on grass. Grass was good. And I
Grass,
did
oh,
fall.
okay.
I did fall over, but it's not like I was going 20 miles an hour either.
Yeah.
You're just going nice and slow, and practicing slowly. And if you fall over, you're on grass. I mean, for
Right.
me, that was okay.
Yeah, yeah. But it is like, I think then probably most of us would say, hey, once you get the hang of it, it's a world of difference. And you're like, why didn't I try this sooner? Right.
Right,
So I
right.
think it is worth it if you decide to take the leap of faith and do it. But yeah, definitely plan out like trainer, then maybe grass, then maybe the quiet road before you're going on like the group ride through Main Street in the middle of a 4-way stoplight intersection.
Right,
Like,
right.
Yeah, I had two suggestions too for someone learning new. I just helped my niece with this. She was training for an Ironman actually and getting a new bike and so forth. But two things I told her was loosen them as much as you can when you first get them. So make them nice and loose so that you are a little bit more confident that you can get out quickly. And the second one, and then you can tighten them up as you get used to it. The second tip that I gave her that she tells me was very helpful was be consistent with what foot you're going to unclip first, just so that you set a routine and your brain says, oh, my left foot needs to go down first, and become comfortable, more comfortable, and let one side be your routine side. And those two tips seem to help her really quickly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
good advice. Yeah.
Good
And
tips.
in general, the SPD, so the more mountain bike style cleat, is going to be a little like looser and easier to get out of than the road cleat. Because if you think of mountain biking, you need, like, when you fall, ideally you should be popping out of the pedals. Like that's what it's designed
Right.
for, so you don't get stuck on something, right? So if you're not like dead set on road pedals or SPD pedal, like if you're not like worried about the look of it and you just want to try clipless, then maybe you start in like the SPD, because that can give you a little easier to get in and out of, right? You can loosen the road
Okay.
ones, but in theory, it's like those are designed to just be a little more locked in. So
No, that's what my sister-in-law said, get the mountain bike
Yeah.
ones, you know,
You
and
know,
you can
from
walk in them, you know.
Yes. Exactly.
for mountain biking, when I first got mine, I tried with clip or clipless, I clipped the shoe into the thing and into the pedal. And it, for me personally, for a mountain bike, it doesn't work out for me. Only because I feel like it gives me a little bit of anxiety on a single trail, on roots, rocks, trees, and all that good stuff and fun stuff. But as soon as I made that decision on my mountain bike to go to flat shoes, the Bontrager, and I got the metal clips, pedals with the little clips on there, so they do adhere pretty good. I mean, for me, I'm not racing a mountain bike or anything. I just, when I go out on the mountain, it's for fun. So for me, that works good, knowing that I can put my foot down quickly.
Mhm.
And I feel secure in that. I don't feel as anxious. It's like as soon as I went to flat soles for myself, it made all the difference for
Yeah.
me, just starting out. But
Yeah.
definitely clips on the gravel and the road for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would
Thank
say
you.
mountain bike, it's more of an even playing field for sure, right? Like, my mom was roding clips for years and then moved to flats after some injuries and things like that. And like, she's no slower, right? Like, I think in mountain bikes, it pretty evens you out. And to be honest, you tend to be a little better at your skills because you don't have your pedals help you with some of leverage and things like that. They can like let you cheat a little bit. Whereas when you're in flats, like if you go to a mountain bike clinic to practice like certain skills, they'll usually tell you to put on flat pedals. Because that, like, then you really have to use your body appropriately. So you're ahead of the curve. Did that help, Patricia?
Yes, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
I'll get there. I'll get there.
Absolutely, yeah. And reach out again if you forget the tips. We'll remind you of them.
No, and thank you for the different saddles also.
Yeah, you're
I
welcome.
do have a Terry on one of them and I do like it. I'm not sure which type it is, but I have a different bike that I'm just not comfortable on the saddle. It's too thin or something. You know,
Right,
so-
right. Yeah, time for a replacement.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I have one question.
Yeah.
So obviously we've chatted. I'm new to all of this and I'm really not ready to purchase because I don't have a good bike and I don't want clip-ins, but do you recommend like a type, like because with the triathlon, like, should I just be wearing my running shoes? Like, are there shoes that I could that simulate what it is like a harder soled shoe? Like what would you recommend, like knowing that I have a flat pedal, I really don't want to put other pedals on my bike
Yeah.
yet until I know I want to pursue this?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you can get like I mean, you can do whatever you want, right? Like if you don't want to go buy new shoes, your running sneakers are fine for what you're doing. It's one less thing for you have to change and transition, one less thing for you to purchase, right? Now, if you, like I said, if you have the pedals that have like the pins, like the hard metal spikes, those like have the potential to damage our running shoes because they tend to have a softer bottom, even though it doesn't seem like it. So then you can buy like a specific flat pedal mountain bike shoe, right? And so if you just Google kind of like a flat pedal bicycle shoe, there should pop up some shoes. And I'm more than happy if you like find one and you're like, hey, is this what it is? Send me the link. I'll take a look at it. There's a bunch of brands out there, but those tend to have a stiffer sole. So the pins aren't like going through the bottom of your shoe. But again, if you're doing 1 or 2 sprints, you don't want to buy all this stuff. You're not going to be like totally hurt if your running shoes aren't in perfect condition, then don't stress about it.
Okay. I
Do
just
you?
thought, because like I have been riding a lot more.
Mhm.
And I don't have the spiky pedal. I mean, I have like a cheap like
Yeah,
Walmart bike.
yeah.
So, and it's like plastic pedals. And I was
Yeah.
curious just because like I noticed that my foot arch gets tired, I think, by how I'm holding my foot.
Yeah.
And I was curious that I was, because I think you mentioned it in like another
Mhm.
conversation, that harder soled shoes, like your bike shoes, keep your foot a certain way.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thought if I had a harder sole shoe, maybe that would help
Yeah.
some of that arch
Yeah.
tired.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that does happen. And I even have inserts in my bike shoes because your arches, like they can collapse when you're pedaling. That's like what naturally happens. So with the insert, it just keeps the arch straight.
Okay.
Right? I guess it's similar to like if you're running or whatever, but because biking our foot is kind of like locked in or not moving, even in flat pedals, right? You're not like jostling your foot around the whole time. You're like trying to keep it in the same spot. And so that is a thing for whatever. I don't know. If someone was like a PT, they could probably explain why it happens. But yeah, I do have like insoles in my shoes to prevent that like collapsing arch.
Okay. Well,
No.
thank you. That's
You're
helpful.
welcome. Yeah. So yeah, not an uncommon thing to happen with pedaling.
I use flats and I just have a pair of hiking shoes, not boots, but shoes that have a really stiff sole.
Yeah.
So it helps with the arch issue.
Okay. Yeah. So like a true hiking shoe, not like a running
Mhm.
sneaker. Yeah.
Yep. But what do I have the Merrill Siren Edge and I love them. And
Okay.
I was gonna get a pair of flat shoes for biking and I'm like, no, I kind of like these.
Yeah. 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 And that's a good point. That's like still definitely different than your like traditional running shoe, right? Because if you go like play with your running shoes right now, like you can bend those things, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what they're designed for. Where if you took like a flat mountain bike shoe, like it's gonna have some give, but then like you go to my road shoe and I don't care who you are, you can't bend that thing, right? That thing is so stiff, it's not budging. So but yeah, like I said, for what you're doing this year, like just do what you have, don't stress out. And then if you love it, you're gonna love it. Then you can add in the stuff, right? Like we all started with like the basics and worked our way throughout all of this. So all right, any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you guys. I know I wrote down some notes to get some further info to you guys. So I will do that at some point this week and make a post with some of those saddle recommendations. Just so everyone knows, like I said, I get a little frustrated sometimes where it's like, just go get a fit. And then no one tells you like a saddle to try. And it's like, well, yeah, I know to go get a fit, but like, can you tell me if like, I'm just want to ride in something. I just want to start somewhere. So like, and if you find something that you love, like share it with the group because you know, Jane's been riding forever, right? And has experienced a lot of things and like, you know, still is open for recommendations and things like that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like, this is stuff that like changes as time goes on. And like she was saying, right, as she gets older, she's realizing, oh, I need to like change these things now, right? Like, and so share with us recommendations because we're we're always open to ideas and to helping people like know, hey, these things are working. So
Well,
All
thank
right.
you, Hunter.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Very informational,
you.
even for somebody
Thank
with lots of experience.
Right.
Yep.
right.
Thank you.
Always learning. All
You're welcome, guys.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
Hunter.
night.
right, I'll be in
Okay.
touch with you.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.